So welcome back after the break. I hope you had a good break. You had some drinks and snacks. So I would like to welcome our next speaker, who is Jeremy, the CEO of FNTECH, and who will be presenting about the migrating in-person events to virtual.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Jeremy. The stage is yours.
Great, thank you. So let me start with a little bit about FNTECH. We are a live events production company. We've got a couple locations, one down in Southern California in Santa Ana and a second facility up in South San Francisco. We've got over 100 full-time employees, and we specialize in conferences and trade shows, corporate events, meetings, that type of thing. We're also the production partner for OCP and have been lucky enough to be working with OCP since its inception. We did the first OCP summit up at Facebook's old headquarters on Page Mill Road. That's the picture in the middle there with the colored chairs for a couple hundred people, and it's amazing to see how OCP has grown over the years. So our journey for COVID actually starts with OCP as well. In early March, we were in San Jose preparing to host the Spring Summit for OCP this year. And as we were just unloading the trucks at the San Jose Convention Center, we met with OCP and realized pretty quickly that we were going to have to cancel the live in-person event as travel restrictions were going into place. So that immediately started a conversation with OCP on how we were going to handle this change and what was going to be the path forward. And I think it quickly became apparent to all of us that the move was going to have to take the conference and put it into virtual. And so that was a big learning curve for us as well as OCP on how we were going to do that. From our standpoint, up until that point, we were just an in-person events company. And at that point in time, we've instantly changed into not only in-person events, but virtual and hybrid events. And along with virtual and hybrid comes a couple new challenges for us that we needed to figure out. Number one was, how are we going to handle the ingestion, the creation of content, bringing in people from their homes and actually get high quality productions out of it that we can then put somewhere. And the second part of that is, where do we put that? What is the platform? What do we use for these virtual events? So with OCP at that point in time, we pretty much did research on everything available in early March out in the world of virtual events to try to figure out how to do this for OCP. And so from the first side of the actual creation of the content, we had to go to work to figure out how to do some remote studios. So up until this point, we've done plenty of live streaming. We do lots of live streaming for events, but it's rare to have to bring in people from their homes that are not able to travel and produce content with them. So using traditional VC technologies such as Zoom and BlueJeans and GoToMeeting and other technologies, we're able to bring people into our remote studios and record them along with their slides, video content, add production value, lower thirds and graphics, other things to create compelling content. And then the second part was, what are we going to do for a platform? And at that point in time, we decided to move forward with Entrado. They had the best platform out there, but it also kind of opened our eyes to what needs to happen in our industry and that we probably needed to work on our own virtual platform. So this is a kind of a look at what we did for OCP at that point. And again, remember, early March is when we first realized we weren't going to be able to do the summit live and in person. And within 2 months, we were able to spin up a virtual site with Entrado and also record all of the content, which is in over 200 sessions. Had to get them recorded and some live and post this content and get it together and build the studios at the same time. So from our side for the studios, we've actually built a couple different studio types. We have everything now from full volumetric staging, where we use Unreal Engine and we use motion tracking on the cameras to create compelling content. We also have green screen studios where we can put full screen graphics behind presenters. And this is for, maybe a couple people we can get into our studio or into our facilities, and everybody else is remote. And then the final studio type we built is for VC injection. So we're able to take, like I say, whether you're in Zoom or GoToMeeting, BlueJeans, or VC of your choice, bring you into our studio. We're able to combine you with your slides and your in your video content. We had to take all of our communications that we would normally use backstage as events and put them on the internet so that we can have our workers working remote. Some of them can work in the studio at social distance, and others work from their homes and just use the remote comms and VC technologies to be able to interact with both clients and presenters and produce the content for all live streams and for VOD content. And this is kind of a look at what we're able to do out of the studios now. So again, by combining with traditional technologies that we would use for live events, and then digitizing them and using them with VCs and having people work from homes, we're able to still create high quality professional content that we use for our virtual productions. For the other side, for the actual hosting, luckily we started off with a good deal of software to begin with. We've been invested in open source software for many years, and we had built out many apps that we use in our backends for our live production. So we have, for instance, sponsor service portals for sponsors to go into. We have speaker management portals for speakers to upload presentations and to gather bios and images. We have review cycle software for track chairs and clients to review what speakers have produced. We have our event admin software where we build the crux of the show. This is the actual skeleton, telling it the venues and the rooms and the spacing and to build the schedule out. Then we have our digital signage applications, which we use to produce digital signage around venues. We have our new studio tools. We also have a full registration suite, which does everything from ordering your tickets, pre-event marketing pages, to when we're doing live events, does badge printing and lead retrieval. And then we also have just meeting manager software to manage the rooms and the physical things that happen there. On top of that, we'd also built out an authenticator we call FNID, which uses the OpenID standard to allow different people to have different credentials to join into different applications when necessary and to allow the apps to share information between each other. Now, the infrastructure we built is not just software, we also built out our hardware. So we built servers in our Southern California location as well as Northern California. We use Veeam to do automated backups of those systems and replication. We're using Cisco to do all of our switching and our server hardware. We're using Nimble to do our server storage and to be able to spread that out. And then building out a virtual platform on top of this software we already had. We've also tied into a couple software as a service layers. So we are using Netlify to basically do our hosting for our virtual events, which allows us to push all of it to the edge of the network on their edge servers and allows for the browser to basically be the server. All of our applications, when we're talking virtual, are basically serverless apps that rely on just RESTful APIs between the applications, so that the server lives in your browser, and that's able to make the speeds a lot quicker when we're deploying worldwide for our virtual events. So taking a look at that, putting that all together, it took us about 3 months. And 3 months after March, we had our virtual platform spun up. And here's a quick look at it. It's basically a place that we can go to using modern web technologies. That we built all of our components in React.js, and again using Netlify to do the distribution. Everything's very fast and works in a modern way. We've also, as software as a service, utilized things like Discuss and Stream.io to do some of the communication tools that we're using, private point-to-point chat, as well as public communications, which allow for robust moderation tools and other things in the background. So this is kind of a look at our platform. And we also are very, very happy to say that we are going to be hosting OCP's Tech Week conference coming up in November on the new platform that we've created. So this has been a real quick kind of look at what we're doing right now with virtual. I think as we're looking at this, live in-person events, we're not thinking they're going to come back until at the earliest next summer. So we needed the stopgap. We needed to fulfill the role. Our clients still needed to produce events, and we found that virtual is really the place to be. And since we built it on the same back end that we drive our live event tools, we're really looking forward to when we get to a moment in time where we can start doing hybrid events, where we can have a live in-person component along with a virtual component. And what we're seeing from our clients going virtual is instead of being the large roadblock that we kind of anticipated it would be for the field for virtual events, we're actually seeing quite the opposite. OCP as a good example, when it went to Intrado, we actually had 3 times the attendees as we would have had in the in-person event. And so that's real eye-opening. And we've kind of seen the same metrics go across our different clients that have gone virtual with their events. Even though you're not maybe necessarily getting the same feel or the same experience you're getting in person, we're able to reach a lot more demographics and a lot more people across the world. You don't have the travel and costs included in what you would have to pay to go to an event, and you also don't have the time constraints. You can kind of go through the materials at your own time and pace, and it can also be persistent and live on onto the web later. So it gives you really some added benefits that you don't get with a live event. So I think, you know, as we're looking at the future of how events are going to lay out, it's going to be a combination. It's going to be a hybrid. As live events come back, I don't think we're ever going to lose the virtual component now that we've gotten a taste of it and seen how it can add to the discussions and add more attendees and really get that viewership out there. So that was really a quick composite of kind of what we're doing at FNTECH, and I'd be willing to take any questions anybody might have if they have anything related.
Thanks, Jeremy. That was great. So one of the first questions that we have is actually from me. I have a question for you. So, you know, what we as a foundation struggle with really on, you know, hosting virtual only events for the time being is that, you know, the most difficult part of migrating to virtual is losing that powerful one-on-one connections that people can make, the hallway impromptu conversations, you know, the leads that vendors look for when they're sponsoring and having booths. How do you see that missing connection part evolving, and how close can we get to face-to-face while we're still in a virtual only, you know, meeting methodology right now?
Yeah, I think that's the big challenge that we're all trying to look at in our industry, is how to replicate that and make that a better experience. I think the tools are getting there. I think everybody will be happy when they get to experience our platform. We've done a lot of work into some of those social tools and the communications and how that people can interact. But I also think these tools are evolving. Like I said, it took us 3 months to spin up our virtual platform, and we had a big head start with already having a bunch of the backend tools created. So I can see, you know, as time goes on and we realize that this pandemic is lasting a little longer than we may have expected at first, that more tools will be created. And even as we're moving along with our platform, we're constantly evolving and creating new ones. Now, with that said, there is also a challenge along those lines. We've looked at platforms. Some of them have gone completely virtual, where you have to you're actually getting into headsets and you have real in-person kind of meetings and networking. The disadvantage that we're still experiencing now, and the full reason that we went to web development, is that a lot of the attendees are still stuck at home. They're not in a place where we can really give them a fully functioning tech support. So we're having to work through tech, through tech support through the web and through interfaces as such, and I can't really get a technician there in person. So I'm really hesitant to really try to give new technologies that people aren't experienced with. I think in this day and age, everybody's comfortable with a web browser, and everybody's comfortable with maybe Zoom or a similar VC technology. Since the pandemic started, that's what most of us are using. But I would hate to try to force people to have to download and install new software or other things to get some of these experiences. So I think we'll see as these things evolve what works and what doesn't work. But currently, we're focused on web technologies and trying to bring as much of that experience from the live events to the virtual events.
Okay, great. So where do you see the near future of the event industry in general? Obviously, you know, hotels, airlines, you know, all these organizations are just decimated by the lack of travel and the lack of this. So what do you think is the near-term future for the industry? You know, as hopefully things start to improve as you know, as the pandemic starts to get under control.
Yeah, I think what we're going to start seeing, in fact, we're already beginning to see it, is hybrid events. So for instance, we've got a venue that we work with up in the Bay Area that does live music, concert series. And so what they're doing is they're doing a limited VIP in-person ticket where they're selling, you know, much fewer tickets than they would for a normal event, but then having socially distanced tables set up for those that are willing to come in person. and they get more of a VIP experience. They have servers that have masks on that come and serve them drinks and food. They can watch the concert live from a social distance location. And then at the same time, we're recording and live streaming the concert series out to people that are remote through the virtual platform. So I think we're going to see more of that, where it's small tepid journeys into live in person with smaller groups in smaller stages, and a larger virtual audience tied to that. And so that's what we've really been working on our side, is developing tools where we're using the same tool set to do the live in-person meetings as well as the virtual meetings, so that when we have to spin up something that's a hybrid, it uses the same back-end tools and the same information. It makes it much easier for us to get that in place and running.
Okay, great. So the next question is, do you think that it's also making people appreciate the in-person feeling that they get more? And will people be eager to get back to in-person events more so than ever before?
I think so. I mean, I think everybody's itching to get out, but it is amazing. Like, just looking at the first poll that you guys had up today, 0% were excited to get back in their offices. You know, so it is kind of a two-sided coin there. I will say that, you know, from the live event standpoint, there just really is nothing that can replicate it. Even as much as we're doing in the virtual world, there's something to be said for in-person meetings and in-person events, just body language and other things you can really recognize in person that don't come across virtual. But virtual also has its own pluses and minuses, again, with being able to not have the travel restrictions, not having to travel, not having to get the hotel rooms, be able to do it at your own pace, and being able to have all the content curated in one location. It does make it a bit different. Not to say one's better or worse than the other, but I think it's just interesting experiences. And as this evolves, we'll kind of have to keep our eye on this and see what people are really tuning into.
And I think a lot of people are just assuming that a lot of in-person meetings, once they can start having them again, will be virtual. That's sort of what we're assuming, that we're going to create some sort of a hybrid model, meaning we think that there's a lot to carry forward from the virtual events that we're having into the real world events. And for example, historically, we never wanted to really live stream sessions, for example, because we thought it would affect our in-person attendance. But as you quoted, you know, for when we had to pivot to a completely virtual global summit, we had, you know, 3 times or 4 times the attendance that we normally would have. So that was very eye-opening for us to kind of say, we need to be able to do a hybrid, because not, you know, who knows when people will be comfortable, travel restrictions or whatever. So we need to be able to do both. But how do you see in-person meetings change? So we get that there will be more virtual. There'll probably be some of those other things, but how do you see in-person meetings improving over time as a result of sort of this hybrid thing? Like we've talked about, for example, in our keynote sessions, maybe there's a way that we visually show all the people who are patching in virtually.
Right.
So the hall feels, so we might have 4,000 people in a room watching keynotes, but we might have 12,000 people watching, you know, from all over the world. There's sort of a cool way to create that interaction. So how are you guys looking at that?
Absolutely. I think that's what I'm most excited about, is that interplay between live events and virtual events. So we're really investing a lot into that, into what that experience can be. And it's exactly what you're saying. It's trying to marry those two worlds, to make it where a person who's live experience at the show, you still get all of the pluses that you would get in the virtual event, and vice versa. If you're only coming into the virtual, how do we make you feel like you're still a person at the live event? So it's the interactions between the two. And we can do that through hardware means, by exactly what you're saying, projecting you know, the virtual attendees to the back of the room. So somebody who's speaking in a room can see the full audience, or an audience in the room can see the full audience. We can bring the chat and conversation tools that we're using in the virtual and bring those to the live event, so that the two audiences are not separated, but actually tied together. And if people were using those communication tools for the live event, then they're also including the people in the virtual event. It becomes a larger audience. Doing things like having VOD on the sessions and live streaming on the sessions. We've had, you know, live events in the past where just the physical size of the venue or the location of the rooms has made it very hard for people to get from session to session, or maybe a session is completely booked. Well, now if you have the virtual tie-in, you can watch it on the live stream, or watch it via on VOD later at your own pace. So I think it's all of those combinations, and I think there's a bunch of tool sets that'll be coming out as we're developing these that we don't even know what they are yet, you know. So this evolution will continue, and I think in the next coming months, more and more of these tools will become available. And again, I think it's just amazing that we're in this time in technology when this occurred. If this pandemic had hit us in, say, the 1980s, none of us would be able to remote work. We were using telephones. There was no internet. So for it to happen, at least now in this time period where everybody has a mobile phone, a mobile device in their pocket that can stream and can view video, and we can interact, and we have the internet, that these things are possible. It's amazing, where these tools are going to be going.
So speaking of tools, are you guys looking at augmented reality or virtual reality in your tool set?
Absolutely. So, an example of that is we actually have gone in and mapped and modeled the entire San Jose Convention Center. For instance, we have a virtual reality lab at our Santa Ana office that we experiment within greatly for how we're going to move into this virtual space. And so with that modeled, we were able to take the Spring Summit from OCP, for instance, and populate the virtual model from San Jose to extreme accuracy to what we would have built in person. So again, thinking as we're moving along the lines into what the future looks like for virtual events, I think there may be a combination of AR and VR and regular web technologies moving forward, and in conjunction with all of those with the live event, to create some really customized and cool options for people that make them want to go to these events. And I think that's the big thing for us, is making sure that clients and sponsors are still getting the ROI and attendees are still getting the information and making those connections that they're looking forward to.
Okay, great. And we got one interesting question that I would agree with this question, because I've been watching, now that live sports are back, it's been really interesting to see how all the different professional sports organizations, and college for that matter, are handling. Some are letting 25% full stadiums, but like what the NBA specifically is doing during the playoffs, they're allowing people to basically zoom in, and so it looks like they're in the stands right there, but they're sitting at their home watching the game, and they've got a camera on them. And there's been some really interesting interactions, and they've done some interesting things with the audiences. You saw President Obama, former President Barack Obama, watching the NBA game, and he's chatting with people and things like that. So what is your perception of that and how they're handling it?
Yeah, I honestly, I think it's amazing. It's a little bit like the Wild Wild West for our industry at the moment, because this is all new. Nobody was really in a position to capitalize on this opportunity, and that's how I see it. Honestly, it's an opportunity. So we're all watching each other and what we're doing, and it's not just live events for corporations like what we're doing. We're looking at what sports are doing. We're looking at what award shows, like how the Emmys handled it. What is what's live TV doing, and how are they managing this? We have the talk shows late at night, and some of those other type of events that are very similar to kind of what we're doing. Where you have a couple of people talking to a larger audience, and how are they making it through that, and what kind of cool things are they doing? So I think we're all like on a level playing field at the moment, trying to evolve together and borrow from each other and find out those experiences. I love what the NBA is doing. I think that's a great use of the technologies that are currently available, and how to try to bring in some of the sports fans, so that they feel like they're a part of it. If they can't be there in person, what else can we do? And we saw that also with the cutouts for baseball and some of the other sporting events. So I think everybody's trying things out, and I think it's evolving, and it's just kind of fun to watch, and we're excited about it.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear. I haven't read anything, but I should look at it. It'd be interesting to hear how the athletes are experiencing that. So for example, the NBA, if one team makes a play, you hear the crowd noise. Now I don't know if it's manufactured or if it's actually from their fans or whatever, but at least when you're watching, you get the sense that there's a crowd there and they're cheering when big plays happen and things like that. So it's been really interesting to watch. So Jeremy, thank you very much for taking the time. This was great, and a great discussion. So I think we're going to hand it off back to Lesia and Bill Carter, who is the CTO for OCP, and they're going to have a brief discussion before our next session. So thanks again, Jeremy.
Great. Thank you, guys.